it has been going viral. A mere minutes after Charlie Kirk is shot, there are two men that look rather mysterious. They appear, they move his chair, and they take down the camera that's directly or was directly behind his head. Why did they do that?
The official report said Charlie Kirk was killed by a single rifle shot. Simple, right? Until the autopsy told a story no one expected: a missing exit wound, an intact bullet lodged under his skin, and silence from every agency involved.
Oh my God. Go, run!
Candace Owens says that silence isn't caution, it's cover-up. She claims to have proof locked inside her dead switch, files that reveal what really happened in that autopsy room. But if that's true, what did the coroner find that the public wasn't meant to see? And how deep does this story really go? Join us as we look into what Candace Owens said about Charlie Kirk's autopsy that they don't want you to see.
When Charlie got shot, and I instantly knew that he was not going to be okay. I instantly knew that he was dead.
The autopsy they don't want you to see. Candace Owens called it the most suspicious death of the decade. Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old founder of Turning Point USA, was shot dead mid-speech at Utah Valley University, a moment that froze the internet and fractured the conservative world. So when Owens hinted that something about the official story didn't add up, she wasn't alone. Viewers who replayed the footage noticed there was no visible exit wound on Kirk's neck. If the shooter used a rifle, as police said, how could that be possible? Was the wound covered up, or was something more technical happening beneath the surface? That single missing hole became the spark for 1,000 theories, and, ironically, the real answers were always lying in a place the public never sees: the autopsy room. Stay alert. What you are about to hear will blow your mind. When someone dies violently, especially a public figure, the autopsy becomes the bridge between rumor and reality. Utah law requires a full forensic examination for all homicide victims, and Kirk's body was transferred under FBI supervision to the state medical examiner's office in Salt Lake City less than 12 hours after his death. Sources confirmed that the exam began early on September 11th, within the 24-hour window recommended by the National Association of Medical Examiners. Every hour counts, because tissue decay can distort the path of a bullet or alter blood evidence. The autopsy was overseen by a board-certified forensic pathologist, with FBI observers present, a detail often overlooked by those claiming a cover-up. Yet despite the formality of the process, the silence around its results has fueled speculation more than it has quelled it. According to Kirk's spokesperson, Andrew Colvett, even the attending surgeon was shocked. The bullet that struck Kirk should have exited. It didn't. Instead, during the autopsy, the medical examiner reportedly found the projectile lodged just beneath the skin at the back of the neck, a position suggesting that its kinetic energy had been almost entirely spent. That's rare, but not impossible. Ballistics experts explain that depending on the ammunition type, range, and angle, a rifle bullet can decelerate sharply when hitting denser tissue or bone. In Kirk's case, early medical notes suggested the bullet struck the vertebral column, deflecting upward before coming to rest subcutaneously. In a grim twist, that may have saved lives. Had it passed through, fragments could have struck staff or attendees seated behind him. Still, to a public used to through and through narratives, the absence of an exit wound looked suspicious, and online, suspicion quickly evolves into certainty. But the Kirk case isn't the first to spiral from wound confusion. The internet has a long memory for missing holes and misplaced bullets. Think of President John F. Kennedy. The so-called magic bullet theory still dominates conspiracy culture 6 decades later. The Zapruder film showed one angle. The autopsy report described another. What people saw didn't match what doctors found. Or consider Tupac Shakur. His autopsy photo was dissected online by millions who claimed it looked too clean to be real, birthing the legend that he faked his death and escaped to Cuba. Every time the physical evidence contradicts the public's visual expectations, conspiracies bloom. And now, Charlie Kirk's case has inherited that same mythology. A single missing exit wound became to some proof of tampering. But to forensic science, it's a data point, one of hundreds that form the story of how a body met its end. Autopsies aren't quick or glamorous. They're meticulous. The process begins with an external examination. Every bruise, tattoo, scar, and abrasion documented and photographed. In shooting cases, wound diameter, depth, and stippling, the tiny powder burns that indicate distance, are measured precisely. Gunshot entry holes typically present with inverted, abraded margins, while exit wounds, if present, appear torn outward. In Kirk's case, reports indicate only one definitive entry wound on the right lateral neck. The lack of corresponding exit tissue was what sent the internet into meltdown. After the visual inspection, technicians bag each hand separately for gunshot residue testing, collect fingernail scrapings, and cut away clothing for separate ballistic analysis. It's standard to slice garments rather than undress the body manually, a practice that frustrates grieving families but preserves trace evidence. The next phase, the internal examination, is where the real answers emerge. That internal phase begins with the Y-shaped incision from shoulders to sternum. Each organ is removed, weighed, and inspected. The bullet's trajectory is traced through soft tissue with a steel probe, mapping the path of destruction. In Kirk's autopsy, the examiner would have followed the wound channel through the right neck, past the carotid sheath, and into the upper spinal region. When the bullet was retrieved, reportedly intact, it was logged as evidence and transferred to the Utah State Crime Lab for ballistic comparison with the suspected shooter's weapon, a semi-automatic rifle registered to 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Even if the projectile matched, the analysis doesn't end there. Toxicology samples are drawn from blood, urine, and vitreous humor, the clear fluid inside the eye, to detect any substances that could influence the manner of death or behavior before impact. Was Kirk under medication, alcohol, anything that could alter the body's response? These tests don't imply wrongdoing, they simply complete the picture. And they're slow. 4 to 6 weeks is standard for toxicology in Utah, longer if there's a backlog. That delay is where the internet's impatience collides with science. While the autopsy itself lasts mere hours, the final report, the full signed document detailing cause and manner of death, can take months. Utah's Office of the Medical Examiner is notorious for backlogs, sometimes exceeding 60 days due to staffing shortages. The law only requires completion within a reasonable time, a vague clause that leaves families and the media waiting. In high-profile cases, reports may also be withheld temporarily if public release could interfere with prosecution. Since Robinson has been charged with aggravated murder, officials are legally justified in keeping certain findings confidential until after the trial begins. Still, the absence of information breeds speculation. Elon Musk's AI assistant, Grok, even fueled rumors by responding to an online query, confirming that an autopsy was performed, but noting that the report hasn't been released publicly yet. No official has corroborated that statement, and yet it went viral as if it were gospel. Once again, a digital whisper became an online headline. Meanwhile, Kirk's remains were transported from Salt Lake City to Phoenix under state escort, accompanied by Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance. Public memorials have been announced, with former President Donald Trump expected to attend. These ceremonial details are verified. The medical ones remain sealed. The FBI's involvement in supervising the autopsy transport added another layer of intrigue. Was it routine federal oversight or a signal of classified findings? The Bureau hasn't commented, though law enforcement cooperation between state and federal agencies in assassination cases is standard. As one retired pathologist told the Arizona Republic, people assume secrecy means conspiracy. In reality, it often just means compliance with procedure. Every chain of custody document, every photograph, every tissue sample is evidence, and evidence can't be released until it's introduced or ruled out in court. So why, despite these protocols, does the public imagination still resist scientific explanations? Because viral footage collapses complexity into emotion. When viewers watched Kirk fall on stage, they didn't see the bullet's deceleration, the ricochet through bone, or the spinal obstruction that halted its exit. They saw a man collapse and a wound that didn't look right. That emotional dissonance drives people toward alternative theories. Owens herself tapped into that tension, questioning not only the trajectory but the timeline. Why so little information? Why no photos? Why no interim report? These are fair questions, but answers grounded in forensic process, not online speculation, will ultimately determine truth. What's visible on a live stream can never substitute for what's discovered on a stainless steel table under surgical lights. Forensic pathologists often say, "The dead don't lie," but their silence requires translation. Every bruise, bullet, and fiber is a word in a story written in tissue. In Charlie Kirk's case, that story is still being read, line by line, under microscopes and mass spectrometers. The missing exit wound isn't evidence of a cover-up. It's evidence of physics, messy, unpredictable, and sometimes merciful. Yet as the autopsy continues under legal seal, the public is left in that uneasy space between grief and proof. The internet thrives on immediacy, but the truth, the clinical, measured, peer-reviewed truth, moves at a slower pace. The autopsy will speak, eventually. Until then, speculation will keep shouting. And perhaps that's the hardest part. In an age where everyone wants instant answers, science still insists on taking its time. The question now, what does Candace have on this incident that is hidden to the public? Let's get into it. Candace Owens leaks and Charlie Kirk's final hours. Candace Owens waited several days before breaking her silence. And when she did, the materials she released changed the conversation. She published screenshots of private texts attributed to Charlie Kirk in a group chat, in which he purportedly complained about losing a major Jewish donor after refusing to cancel Tucker Carlson. One message reads, "Just lost another huge Jewish donor. $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker." The texts also included lines like, "Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this." TPUSA spokesman Andrew Colvett later confirmed that Kirk had privately expressed frustration over donor pressure, though he denied the implication that Kirk had been coerced publicly. What are in those texts? And what secrets are being revealed by Owens? You are at the edge of your seat, and it is about to get even better. Those texts are now central to Owens' claim that Kirk was under pressure from powerful financial interests, pressure that may have grown lethal. Owens also asserted that Kirk had told people in private, in the 24 hours before his death, that he feared he would be killed. She said 3 off-record sources shared with her that Kirk expressed that foreboding. That claim has no public documentation yet, and Owens herself acknowledged it was based on off-record testimony. If true, though, it suggests that Kirk sensed threats against his life before the shooting, information that would be significant for motive but remains unverified in court records or law enforcement disclosures. In addition to text leaks and predictions, Owens made a bold allegation about a donor intervention. She claimed that at a Hamptons meeting, billionaire Bill Ackman intervened to pressure Kirk over his evolving views on Israel, threatening funding or influence. Ackman publicly denied it all. He released WhatsApp text exchanges showing cordial messages between himself and Kirk, in which he invited him to dinner and denied making threats. He also insisted that no blackmail or coercion ever transpired, calling claims by Owens slanderous. The contradiction is sharp. One side claims a high-stakes intervention with threat implied. The other insists only amicable communication existed. Which version aligns with unredacted records, or hidden ones, is unknown to the public. Owens framed her leak strategy as part of a larger plan. She said she had distributed sealed packages with documents, emails, videos, and legal files to trusted associates to be released if anything happened to her. She calls it a dead man's switch. No certified third party has yet confirmed receiving or holding those materials publicly. Her reference to this switch has added dramatic weight to her claims, turning them into threats of retaliation and accountability if suppressed. But whether those packages contain new evidence or merely reiterate her existing claims remains speculation until something is produced or confirmed by independent sources. Meanwhile, critics have fought back. Josh Hammer, a longtime collaborator with Kirk, published his final chats with him, effectively injecting competing private communications into public view. Some observers saw that as an attempt to reclaim narrative control from Owens. Others accuse her of exaggerating or misinterpreting partial evidence. One viral claim she floated, that an Egyptian Air Force plane flew out of Utah soon after the shooting, was challenged by flight logs and time zone data, weakening confidence in her more speculative assertions. In some news coverage, her theories have been labeled conspiracy-minded or extreme, particularly when connecting Israeli influence or encryption in the handling of Kirk's death. These counter-arguments don't disprove her leaks, but they complicate how the public weighs her credibility. In the days following her initial release, several journalists and independent investigators began to parse through metadata on the leaked texts. Some analysts suggested timestamps and message IDs indicated edits or screenshots compiled from different conversations. That detail raised questions about authenticity, not necessarily fabrication, but the possibility that Owens merged contextually separate exchanges into a single thread to illustrate a pattern. Others defended her, arguing that even if the texts were spliced, the content's truth value remained. Amid the noise, no forensic audit of her leaks has yet been verified by a neutral cybersecurity firm or court filing. Owens's defenders frame her as a whistleblower, standing against an entrenched system of donors, lobbyists, and media allies who dictate conservative narratives behind the scenes. Her detractors view her as weaponizing partial truths for influence, dragging unverified claims into public discourse. Between those camps lies a widening distrust in both institutions and personalities once considered aligned. The question is no longer only whether Kirk was pressured, but who now controls the story of his downfall. Owens's claims rest now on three main pillars: the leaked text messages, the donor intervention allegation, and the predictive statements about Kirk's own fear. Among those, only the texts have partial confirmation. Colvert admitted he had shared similar messages privately, but their broader meaning, tone, or context remain open to interpretation. Owens wants us to see them as motive evidence. Others see them as internal frustration, not necessarily a cause for lethal retaliation. Her invocation of the dead man's switch raises the possibility of additional hidden documents, but without verification, it remains a rhetorical device more than proof. Still, the implications of her leaks ripple outward. TPU-SA reportedly suspended 2 internal staffers pending inquiry into unauthorized data transfers, a move that, while not tied to Owens directly, fueled speculation that someone inside may have fed her material. Conservative commentators have split sharply. Some, like Dave Rubin, urged restraint and factual verification, while others amplified Owens's findings as evidence of a deeper purge within the movement. The divide has made what began as a tragedy into an ideological civil war. So what remains hidden behind the claims and counterclaims? If Owens has something more, internal communications, surveillance footage, a complete donor ledger, unredacted autopsy, or ballistic files, or witnesses who haven't spoken, none of that has surfaced publicly yet. But she has shifted the burden. She says she's exposing what she can, demanding the rest be unlocked. The public hasn't seen beyond the texts and accusations. If there is heavier evidence behind them, it now rests on those sealed packages or withheld documents. Until those are disclosed, everything she reveals is filtered through interpretation, and everything she withholds will breed further suspicion. What are people saying about this deep reveal? Curious. Let's dig deeper. The aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death and Owens' leaks. The day after Owens published her leaked texts, Turning Point USA's board went into crisis mode. Internal messaging among senior TPUSA staff, as reported in conservative insider media, showed intense concern over donor relations and public perception. Some board members privately urged issuing a joint statement distancing the organization from Owens's more speculative claims. Others, reportedly, feared the backlash could collapse TPUSA's funding pipeline. At the same time, media outlets covering the leaks began soliciting interviews with TPUSA leadership. Their public response was limited. They reaffirmed Charlie Kirk's mission and rejected attempts to blacken internal communications. But they also announced internal reviews into how donor communications had been handled. The tension inside TPUSA suggested that Owens's revelations were already disrupting the institutional equilibrium far more than many anticipated. What effect does all of this have on the ongoing case with the suspect? Brace yourself. The most interesting part is still ahead. Meanwhile, federal authorities and the FBI faced mounting pressure to respond to Owens's accusations about evidence suppression. In a public briefing days later, FBI officials confirmed that DNA from the rifle's trigger was linked to Tyler Robinson. They disclosed that Robinson had left a note asserting his intent. "I had an opportunity to take out Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Prosecutors revealed that Robinson had also sent a confessional text to his partner after the shooting. These admissions and forensic matches formed the core prosecution narrative. But Owens countered, alleging that the FBI was withholding door camera footage and fabricating messages to reinforce a narrative. The contrast between disclosed evidence and her withheld allegations opened fertile ground for allegations of law enforcement overreach or intentional narrative shaping. On the legal front, Tyler Robinson's case advanced rapidly. Formal charges include aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, firearm discharge causing serious harm, witness tampering, and a violent offense in the presence of a child. The prosecution is seeking the death penalty. Defense experts have already signaled areas for challenge, including the legality of warrant execution, timing of evidence collection, and the public release of portions of the case. Randall Spencer, a veteran defense attorney, commented that the defense may push a factual innocence argument or question the aggravating factors justifying capital charges. He also warned that leaks of discovery or evidence into media may threaten Robinson's right to a fair trial. The secrecy around evidence handling echoes Owens' claims, not in agreement, but in thematic overlap. Amid these upheavals, donors and political backers watched nervously. Several major contributors to TPUSA reportedly requested briefings from its board on risk exposure. Conservative media personalities signaled caution, privately warning that Owens' aggressive disclosures could alienate some institutional backers. At the same time, some new donors publicly pledged loyalty to TPUSA in solidarity with Kirk's legacy. statements made in press releases, fundraising emails, and social media channels. Speculative reporting suggests that some donors may have paused further funding until the investigation's narrative stabilized. Whether these reactions reflect fear of ideological liability or genuine concern about TPUSA's internal coherence remains unclear, but one fact is certain: the financial underpinning of the movement is now under pressure. In a more personal dimension, Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, and their 2 young children are navigating the public storm. After the shooting, the family issued a statement calling Kirk America's greatest martyr to free speech and asked for grace, privacy, and understanding from the media. Friends close to the family have remarked that they are mourning privately, wrestling with questions about the future of the organization Kirk built. Some external observers have noted that Erica Kirk appears in memorial events and public statements less frequently than one might expect, perhaps protecting their children's privacy during immense national exposure. The family's reaction has steered between forgiveness and demand for accountability. As one source close to TPUSA phrased it, they want truth, but not spectacle. The way they balance public duty and private grief may reveal more about Kirk's legacy than any autopsy or leak. All these dynamics coalesce into a central question: was this simply chaotic mismanagement, or a cover-up crafted by those with the most to lose? Owens insists the latter, pointing to inconsistencies in evidence release, donor pressure, and institutional silence. TPUSA and law enforcement insist they are following strict protocols under criminal investigation constraints. Media coverage, meanwhile, alternates between sympathy for the grieving cause and skepticism toward wild speculations. The legal process will likely uncover more: sealed motions, redacted files, internal emails, and court orders. Each document could either reinforce or undercut narratives of negligence or conspiracy. The essential question remains: will objective accountability ever emerge from such a contested arena? Was this truly an autopsy, or just the beginning of another cover-up? And if the truth is still buried, who really benefits from keeping it that way? Let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.